So in case you have not looked at the announcement, well, it wasn't really an announcement, just something that was posted on the Facebook Drugong Dhammakirti group, is to alert you to the fact that the application, the sign up page is now ready on the website. So Javier just shared with you, in case you have not gone there to formally apply, that will be the place to go to. After you have done that, then at some point after that, an email will come. I mean, no one's going to be turned down. But some kind of formality is good. It says, you know, like I'm making a formal request to be part of this. So that's a good thing to do. So as you answer the questions, I mean, don't stress over it, but it's a good opportunity to kind of be intentional about this. Then, as I said, you know, then some email will come later that will give you the password to get access to the protected area of the website. And in there you will see right now, basically we have two things going on in there. One is where we will put the texts that we are going to use on a regular basis. We're going to put those texts there. Then secondly, it will also have a forum, old-fashioned kind of discussion board where people can ask questions and have discussions, just as it has sort of started on the Facebook group. But I know that not everybody is on Facebook, or even if you are, not everybody likes to go to Facebook. So it's good to move, I think, this discussions over to what's in the protected area. My understanding is that forum is pretty straightforward to use. So you can go and check it out. In case it is not so straightforward to use, next Wednesday I'm going to have Javier kind of walk us through using a shared screen to walk us through what happens there. But maybe between now and then someone would already start some of the discussions. So anyway, again, good evening. So Javier just shared the link to the application to formally request to be part of DDIS. So please go do that. Then you will have access to the protected area. So we are going to start with the usual opening recitations, opening prayers. So there was a question that was asked about what to do with our hands during these recitations. First of all, what to do with the hands? There are traditions associated with that. Actually, in all Buddhist traditions, there are these conventions. I like to call them conventions. There are established conventions that has been passed down, that has been used for formal practice, right? So after all, it is formal practice, right? We don't want it to be so loosey-goosey and informal. Then there's no point to even having a formal practice. At the same time, we don't want formal practice to be so stuffy, so restrictive, that you feel like you can't even breathe because there's so many rules, right? So these conventions are established conventions passed down over generations. And here I want to footnote to say, you might even hear people saying that it has always been done this way. My footnote is, from my historian's point of view, take that with a grain of salt, right? Because it's not always been used that way. But I can say that these conventions at least has been around longer than I think, I would say all of us have been alive. So long enough for me, if it's been long enough, then all of us here have been alive. Then it's long enough for it to be an established convention, a convention that we can skillfully adopt, providing us a reference point. And that's how I really look at the issue of like kind of proper ritual procedure, how to put down the vajra, the bell, when to pick up this, when to pick up that, all of that, that I don't relate to them like, this is like commandments, God wants it this way, Buddha wants it this way, or anything like that. But I relate to them as a form, a skillful form and convention that has been established and passed down for us to provide us a context. And this is also especially important when we are seated together in the same room. Of course, now we are in a virtual room. So maybe not as distracting if your hands are doing other things. But there is something about, being in the same room and executing the movements all as one body, as Christians will say, the church is the one body of Christ, so that we all work together as a whole, rather than, well, I like it this way. That's a particularly an American disease, United States American disease. I want to be different. Okay. In other contexts, there's a lot of, I believe that too. In other contexts, there's a lot of good to be said about that attitude. I want to be different. But there's a time and place for everything. When we come together as one body to perform one practice, to harmonize, to be one body. Not necessarily to be identical even, I'm not saying that we become like, exact, like Xerox copies, robots of each other. One body, right? So one body means, some of us are ears, some of us are nose, right? Some of us are mouth, but they work together. Not one conflicting with the other. Yeah. So some of these conventions relating to the opening prayers. So in an earlier generation of preparing these texts, I actually put them in there to indicate, not to say that I won't reintroduce that later. In fact, many years ago, I started to use that. But then now I have not included in the latest installment of these texts. Yeah. And so actually right now, either Javier or Omar, if you can share the text, because I don't think everyone got a chance to register or everyone got a chance to go download the text of the opening recitations.
Not able to share his screen right now.
Oh, right. I have not given you superpowers.
Not sure if Omar has that.
let's see, superpower, voila,
Okay.
you have been empowered. Yeah,
Should be.
so here in the short recitation, the short opening recitation, then this first and second, our hands are placed. If we were all doing this, especially in the same temple, then our hands are placed in the meditation mudra. Yeah, the meditation mudra, down. So that would be how the hands are. So we don't start with the Anjali mudra. This is called the Anjali mudra in Sanskrit. Mudra means gesture. Anjali, yeah, it's like it's the name of this mudra, the Anjali mudra. Then the Dhyana mudra, the meditation mudra, is like this: right palm resting on left palm, two thumbs touching each other, and held in front of the navel area. So that's the Dhyana mudra. So the first two prayers we keep in the meditation posture. Then when we go to refuge, if we were doing the long like prayers now, then starting from refuge, we do Anjali. Refuge. So whether we're doing the long refuge and then continuing to the short refuge by Atisha, our hands are in this Anjali. Anjali is basically the mudra that you would hold whenever you are saying refuge recitations, or offering praises, or making offerings. Then the hands are held like this. In the Tibetan tradition, it is emphasized that this Anjali mudra is not flat like this. Yeah, not two palms flat together, but in the shape of what's called a lotus bud. In the shape of a lotus bud. So it's puffed up like this. It's puffed up. And then here, the two thumbs kind of folded in slightly. Yeah, so that's an opening like this. Yeah. And the meaning of this is that what you're holding, that your hands are not just in this mudra, but your hands is in a gesture of holding the wish-fulfilling jewel. And the wish-fulfilling jewel is bodhicitta. And so you're holding the bodhicitta, and you're holding bodhicitta in front of your heart area. Yeah, here, holding it here, not up here. Actually, up here, it's sort of like, and these are conventions, of course, but you should understand what it means, within the culture that this has developed. When this is placed up here like that, it's often an expression of sadness. Yeah, when someone is really sad, then it comes up from the heart. It's almost like saying the heart, is coming out to the mouth, like really sad. Or in a gesture of like being really like, really respectful, really moved. Yes. Sad, not just sad, but also like when you're really moved, you would do this. You would do this, right? When you're really moved, when you're really touched. So this, you kind of want to save it, right? For when you're really touched. If all the time you're like this, nobody's going to believe you that you're really touched. So regular is in front. When you're really moved and touched, you can let it creep up and go, oh, and then people will like, oh, yes, he's really touched, But if every single time you see her, she's doing like this, you're like, I don't know. I'm not convinced. Yeah, so out in front of the heart. Then the four immeasurable minds. That is back to the Dhyana Mudra, the meditation. Is there a rationale to what are the guiding principles? It's basically when you are supposed to be like meditating, so to say, or visualizing, then it's in the meditation posture. Or the other way to put it is, this is standard way to leave your hands during a formal session of practice, unless other hand gestures are required. Otherwise, the natural state, so to say, is to be in the state of meditative equipoise, to settle evenly the mind, settling the mind evenly. So this gesture here is not just that, oh, now I have to do this, now I have to do this, right? It's to really understand the meaning of these gestures. And in fact, the Vajrayana level, at the entrance level of Hinayana, body and mind are clearly taught as two domains of our human experience, body and mind. So on the Hinayana level, meaning the entry level, the foundational level of understanding Buddha's teaching, there the emphasis is to clearly understand body and mind, and not just body and mind, but to be able to see that what we call mind are actually momentary. What we call mind is not one thing, it's moments. After moment following by another moment and another moment. So the transitory nature of each moment of mind. And each moment of mind has a particular characteristic, a particular quality. And likewise, each moment of body. Body that we, before we were exposed to the Buddha Dharma, we think body is just one thing. But Buddha Dharma at the entrance level says, now let's look at this thing we call body. And then we also see the momentary nature of body. So on the Hinayana level, the vision that has to be developed is to see clearly, right, the composite nature of body and mind, and therefore the composite nature of experiences. But when we get to the Vajrayana, but from the Vajrayana standpoint, at that point, we, on the basis of understanding the composite nature of our being, or this body, this mind, on that basis, not, like exceeding that, but on that basis, when we look deeper, we also begin to see how body and mind are really not two separate domains. Body and mind is non-dual, and through the experience of energy. So that is kind of a new agey word, energy. Ooh. So lung sem, lung is literally is wind, but it's not like wind. Wind it's a name of that subtle energy called wind, because it has qualities similar to wind. So it's called wind energy, lung. Lung sem. Sem is mind. Lung and sem are inseparable. And lung is a property of the body, is in fact what the body consists of. And Lung and Sem work hand in hand, hand in glove. Yeah. So at the Vajrayana level then, body, energy, sound, they are all related. And mind. Body, energy, sound, mind. Now we begin to see them as occupying a spectrum rather than four separate rooms. They are a spectrum. By manipulating body, certain states of mind are more likely to occur. By manipulating mind, certain bodily experiences can arise. By manipulating energy. So if body is here, mind is here, energy is here, sound is here. Sound and energy are very closely related, sometimes interchangeable in Vajrayana material. Hence mantra, hence the recitation of mantra. Of course, there's the mindless recitation of mantra, which, still better than mindless recitation of samsaric complaints. In between the two, mindless recitation of samsaric complaints and gossip and mental gossip, mindless recitation of mantra, much better. Then between mindless recitation of mantra and really skillful use of mantra, then we get closer to the lung energy part of things. Then from lung to sem. So you have body, you have voice or sound, then you have energy, then you have mind. This is all on the spectrum, and this is all basically, you can say the same thing in different density is one way to understand this. This is specially elaborated in Vajrayana material, Vajrayana text. Yeah. So anyway, coming back to, so rather than relating to these conventions as, arbitrary, like just, someone arbitrarily at some point said, okay, put your hands like this. Now put your hands like this. You certainly could relate to these conventions in this manner. But if you relate to it in that manner, then you rob yourself, really, of the power and the potential of what these conventions could do for you. So then the other perspective on this is, the other way to relate to this is, these are skillful means. Skillful means which the realized beings of the past have discovered and therefore employed and therefore transmitted down to us. So now when we relate to the conventions that way, but not in a like fearful way, in a superstitious way, but with understanding that, there are interdependencies involved. So that when the hands are settled like this, when the thumbs are touching, and when they're held in front of the navel area, almost like you're embracing, embracing this navel area here. In fact, that is in part what is going on. In the area that is like beneath the navel, the belly button, between there and the crotch, in this central area, this is the seat of all these energetic movements. The more our mind kind of rests in that area, the less ups and downs. So when we want to settle in meditative equipoise, with the hands held like that, Understand that, that is where the mind settles evenly, right? So related to that then, in a formal session of practice, that's the default position. Then within the default position, from time to time, different mudras, different gestures are called for. Then during refuge, the gesture comes up like this, or any parts where there are offerings. Then furthermore, in more elaborate practices, like the 8 mudras for offering argyam, padyam, pushpe, dhupe, those gestures are other gestures, other physical gestures to help us also connect with inner energy movements. And so that all the gestures, there are layers of meanings and functions that are going on. And so if we begin to understand and appreciate, right, these conventions from this perspective, then, we get more than what we are going to get if we just stay at the level of, oh, this is just arbitrary stuff that has been passed down. It's just tradition. Then you're like, out of politeness to the tradition, I'm just going to do it. Well, then, whatever degree this attitude, this understanding can produce, results, it will produce corresponding results. Yeah. Then worse than this would be, in my opinion, worse than this would be to think, this is pointless. I don't need this. Then, you have deprived yourself of the tools that have been provided by the tradition. So, first, so the default position is the Dhyana Mudra, the gesture of meditative equipoise. So that means mind should settle evenly. Within this mind that is settled evenly, like a big bowl of water that is settled evenly, there's no winds, there's no movement, then every object that comes in front, above this water, is clearly reflected in the water. And this is especially important when we do more involved visualization practice of imagining ourselves as the deity, as having the form of the deity. There, this meditative equipoise, this evenness of mind is very important. This is the kind of evenness that is luminous, clear evenness, not dull evenness. Not even in a dull state, but even in a luminous, bright state of mind. So that's the default body and mind when we do these formal sessions of practice. And so let's start. If we can have a volunteer read one time. Anyone can start in English.
Just the first part?
Javier is going to scroll and
okay.
Yeah.
I'll be happy to read it.
Thank you.
all mother sentient beings, limitless as the sky, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and all-knowingness. May they experience happiness and be separated from suffering. I will quickly establish them in the state of the most perfect and precious Bodhi. Thus, until I achieve Buddha, I engage in virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Until death, I engage in virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. From now until this time tomorrow, I engage in virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind.
Further,
All,
too short, Atisha's refuge.
In the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until Bodhi is reached. By the merit of generosity and other perfections, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all wandering beings. May all mother sentient beings, limitless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from bias of attachment and aversion.
Now let's go, go further now. Sorry, Javier, go ahead. The seven limb, sevenfold short. Yeah. Kathy.
Whatever slight virtue that may have been gathered through prostrating, offering, confessing, rejoicing, requesting, and beseeching, I now dedicate to complete Bodhi.
Yeah, so then this particular verse here, we are also holding the Anjali. This is like, so during dedication, during paying homage, during taking refuge, during praises, we hold it in Anjali. Okay, now we'll go to the beginning, and I will chant the way that it is chanted traditionally. At some point further down the road, I've done this before. Some of you have heard this many times. I want to introduce like vocabulary, Tibetan vocabulary, so that you have a richer understanding. There are things that like a translation doesn't capture everything that is there. Every translation is an interpretation, and choices are being made. So even as the choices were made for this particular English, it is not made with the thinking that, oh, here it will capture the whole semantic range that was present in the Tibetan. So Tibetan words, right? Each Tibetan word has its particular semantic range, range of meanings, right? Its neighbors, right? Who lives in that neighborhood of that word. That some words you can find fairly exact correspondence. Yeah. Find fairly exact correspondence in the target language. But a lot of words, they live in different neighborhoods. I think Suzanne just shared a great quote. All translators are traders. Trader, that's kind of a sensitive word right now, considering last Wednesday. Hopefully not that kind of trader. Yeah, so, from time to time, I think it'll be good for us to look at the Tibetan a little bit, and then especially if I have more people helping me to explore the Tibetan. I never formally trained in Tibetan, so but it's worth going back to like look at some of the keywords in any of the practices, the prayers that we do, and kind of look at that and go, Oh, to be able to talk a little bit more. Yeah. Anyway, so now the form first. Yeah. The form, the convention. Dala Dhamma Jebe Dra Nopar Jebe Gek Tarba Dhan Tam Je Gembe Bardu Jobra Jeba Tam Jege Zo Jebe Man Ankadang Nyambe Senjen Tam Je Dewa Dang Den Dungyao Dang Je Nidu Lana Mepaya Dabara Zobe Janju Rinpoche Tobra Dala Dawa Jebe Dha Nobar Jebe Ge Tarba Dhan Tam Je Gembe Bardu Chobra Jeba Tam Je Gizo Jebe Manam Kadang Nyambe Senjen Tam Je Dewa Dang Den Dungyao Dang De Nerdu Lana Mebaya Dabra Zobe Janju Rinpoche Dobra Dala Dhamma Jebe Dra Nobar Jebe Gek Tarba Dan Tam Je Gembe Bardu Chopra Jeba Tam Je Gizu Jebe Manang Kadang Nyambe Senjen Tam Je Dewa Dang Den Dungyao Dang De Nerdu Lana Mebaya Dabra Zobe Janju Rinpoche Tobra de Sama Gege Bardu Lunga Yizum Gewala Go Maje Bardu Lunga Yizum Gewala Go de Dering Ne Sunde Nima Santa Samge Bardu Lunga Yizum Gewala Go. Now in Anjali, Sanje Jodan Soge Chognam La Chanju Bardu Tane Gyabzu Je Dage Jinsu Gebe Sonang Ke Drola Pincher Sanje Duprashu Sanje Jodan Soge Chonam La Chanju Bardu Tane Gyabzu Je Dage Jinsu Gebe Sonang Ke Drola Pincher Sanje Duprashu Sanje Jodan Soge Jonam La Janju Bardu Dane Kyabzu Ji Dage Jinso Gebe Sonang Ki Drola Penchir Sanje Drupro Manang Kada Nyampe Senchen Tamje Dewa Dang Dewen Gindan Dempra Girji Dungyao Dan Dungyao Gi Gyudang Drewa Girji Dungyao Mebe Dewa Dang Me Drewa Girji Niring Chadang Nidang Drewa Tangyang La Nebra Girji Manang Kadang Nyampe Senchen Tamje Dewa Dang Dewe Gindan Dempra Girji Dungyao Dan Dungyao Gi Gyudang Drewa Girji Dunga Mebe Dewa Dhamme Drewa Girji Niring Chadang Nidang Drewa Tangyang La Nebra Girji Manang Kadang Nyampe Senchen Tamje Dewa Dang Dewe Gindan Dembra Girji Dunga Dan Dunga Gi Gyudang Drewa Girji Dunga Mebe Dewa Dhamme Drewa Girji Niring Chadang Nidang Drewe Tangyang La Nebra Girji. Now Anjali Mudra again. Chase Wadan Jujing Shabadan Jese Yirang Kujing Sowa Ye Gewa Jungse Dagi Chisakpa Tamche Sobe Changche Chungu. Yeah, so whenever we do Anjali, remembering that we're holding bodhicitta, and holding bodhicitta, making offerings, going for refuge, doing dedication, to me, it's such a beautiful reminder that really, ultimately, what we're paying homage to is bodhicitta, right? what we're paying homage to is bodhicitta. What are we offering? Bodhicitta. It's the best gift that we can give, so to say. The best offering we can offer is bodhicitta. What are we dedicating? We're dedicating bodhicitta. Bodhicitta, two aspects, relative and ultimate. Relative bodhicitta pertains to the compassion side of this mind. Ultimate bodhicitta pertains to the wisdom side. But for any of this to be bodhicitta, when it's wisdom, compassion is in the background. When it is compassion and love, wisdom has to be in the background. Otherwise, right? Simply love and compassion doesn't bodhicitta make. It has to be informed by a particular insight. So we call wisdom. Then wisdom, this insight, if it is just, even if the wisdom is technically correct, you see the emptiness of self, you see the lack of substantiality, blah, 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 all those things that you've heard many times. Even if that wisdom is seemingly clear, but if it is not powered by love and compassion and care for others that are illusory, self that is illusory, if it is not informed by that, powered by that love and compassion, this is not bodhicitta. So bodhicitta has two aspects, the ultimate and the relative. And these two are inseparable. So we are holding bodhicitta, each time. So when we do this, so even like when we do this and we see teachers, or when we greet each other, and so in Corona, in the COVID-19 world that we lived in, right? No more shaking hands, not even bumping fist. So we do this, we hold our hands. So if we can remember, so again, this can just be kind of used in a mindless way, like, you, like, as they say, you like appropriating someone's culture, like, oh, you do this. But if you actually do it with that understanding, it's bodhicitta. Then you can say, as they say, right, namaste is supposed to be what? The divine in me salutes the divine in you, So our version would be, I give you my bodhicitta and I recognize your bodhicitta. Yeah. Or as one of the memes I shared on Facebook is not namaste, but namaskre, like cray, crazy. Namaskre, the crazy in me salutes the crazy in you. The crazy in me sees the crazy in you. So, this simple gesture, of Anjali held in front of our heart, it's then also it's the gesture of Avalokiteshvara, the four-armed Avalokiteshvara. He, she, it, they hold the wish-fulfilling jewel, which is bodhicitta, in front of their heart. Then samadhi, meditative equipoise, Dhyana Mudra, the state, the mind evenly settled. Okay, you can unmute yourself and see if you have questions or comments so far on what you have heard. And each time, if you can remind us your name, where you are zooming from, that will allow us to get to know each other more and more. Don't be shy.
Hi, I'm Cesar Julian. My first two names, Cesar Julian, and my last name is Gomez. I'm from Guadalajara, Jalisco, Mexico. I tell in the past the mariachi's land. I think some of you know
Jalisco
this.
is tequila world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He born the tequila. Yes, here.
You know why I know?
Well,
I don't drink
sorry?
at all, but you know why I know?
Yes, there is.
You know how I know this about Jalisco is tequila?
How?
Monaca.
And
It's a
I
series.
don't know.
It's a series on Netflix.
Okay.
Monaca.
And you know some places in that series appear some places about tequila.
No, just that.
Just you listen something about that. Yes.
Yeah.
A beautiful place. If someday you came to here, it's a beautiful place and archaeological sites,
Okay.
mariachi, many things. I'm from Guadalajara. If you came, you are welcome.
Thank you.
So nice to meet you, all of you.
Yes, we will all go.
Okay, we are
I'm
waiting for
definitely
all
going.
of you.
Larry, what did you
Yeah,
say?
I'm definitely going.
Oh, good. See, Larry is already going.
I'm
Okay.
flying to, yeah, I have a friend in San Pancho, San Francisco. And I'm going to spend some time in Guadalajara. I'd love to meet you.
Okay.
Excellent.
I waiting for all of you.
Okay. Dr. Lai,
Yes.
I have a question about the posture.
Yes.
I guess occasionally you said it's okay to, or I remember thinking it was okay to put your hands on your legs. So is that something which is inferior but not totally unacceptable, or?
Yeah. Again, like in the formal practice, it's usually in this meditation posture, but there
Okay.
are some meditation instructions, yeah, where the two hands are placed on the two knees. That's what I really meant to say. Yeah. There are some meditation instructions where it describes the physical posture. It says to put the two hands, yeah, palms down on your two knees.
Okay. But you recommend that be done only when instructed to do so?
Right. Generally speaking, again, none of this, right, is so. So in the spirit of, like, for example, I said, if we are actually in the physical space together in the gompa, in the temple, in the center, right, then
Yeah.
monkey see, monkey do. Don't stick out. Everybody is doing this.
Right.
Like, oh, Han says it's okay to do that. I'm going to do that.
Right.
That's like, come on, play along,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Or if you see everybody going this way, right? Okay, well then, that's the posture of the moment,
Right. So why stick out?
Right. But in the instructions on what to do with the hands when we're in silent meditation, yeah, then I can say that basically two postures are given in the instructions. One, the most common is this, the Dhyana Mudra, yeah, and the other one is to put both this way and on the knees. I have never come across in any Buddhist instruction material that does this. Yeah, this is Hindu. Yeah, and placing it like that on the knees. Yeah. So if you're practicing a particular session that you learn from the Hindu tradition, then do that. It has its own integrity. Yeah, it's not bad. Unless it's telling you to, like, you know, choke like 2 chickens like this and hold. That's very bad. But otherwise, there's nothing bad, but it's just not in the system that we're working with, you know. I think there's so much of people just jumbling up everything, you know.
Yeah. I have another question about the offerings. When I'm trying to develop my own practice, I'm sort of a little unsettled about how much of the offerings I actually do, because when we go through the prayers in the concise form, we're basically just saying the offerings, but we're not making them.
Yes.
So is it okay to go through it that way and mentally make the offerings, or should the offerings be a separate, you know, ritual?
Outer, inner, secret, in alignment is best.
Okay.
Right. So outer, the most common one is like a row of, you know, offering bowls, right?
Yeah.
That's the outer. Inner refers to the mind imagining these offerings, but not just limited to the 7 bowls, they say, but as filling the entirety of space.
So before I go into the meditation practice,
hold on. Then secret is like the underlying understanding of how the one making the offering, the one receiving the offering, and the act of offering, they're interdependent. There's no giver if there's no receiver. There's no receiver if there's no giver. And there can be no act of giving if that doesn't exist. So the interdependence of the 3.
So
I mean,
when I would go into the temple and fill the bowls,
yes,
and do all the ritual things, that could be considered the outer offering.
Yeah, and that's setting the offering.
Right.
Then when
I go through the practice,
yes,
it can be done mentally.
Yes,
because the offering has already been made before we went into the service.
We don't need to be so exactly when the offering is made. It's almost like when you go into the temple and you're turning the bowl, them, that's like preparing the offerings.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wanted to touch on something Lawrence was saying. I think he's also asking, and Lawrence, please tell me if I'm wrong, is there a visualization of the refuge field that is particular to this tradition that you would like us to do? I personally just do the copper colored mountain with Guru Rinpoche and stuff when I do it.
Yeah, so here, you know, like this particular, in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha most excellent, it doesn't matter so much.
Okay.
The point is the objects of refuge, you know. The point is the objects of refuge, and the point is more, in fact, I would emphasize, remembering like the qualities of Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. I find that after all these years, right, sometimes Tibetan Buddhism has too many technical details. Too many for whom? Too many for type A Americans. Not too many for, you know, laid-back Catholic cultures down south. Not too many for Tibetans up in the mountains of Tibet. Yeah, all the details, you know. I feel, you know, like if you go to India, you know, I've told this before. You'd be like driving up like some mountain road, you know, going somewhere. And you turn a corner And right there you see like 3 guys sitting, like squatting on the side of the road. And there's nothing else going on there except these 3 guys are there. They're squatting there and they're just kind of staring into midair. Yeah, 6 hours later, you turn around and you come back that way. That same 3 guys are just still sitting there, staring into space, doing nothing in particular. And so, giving them instructions of, you visualize in front, this, then this, then this, then that, then that, then that, then this, that, and this and that, and this and that, In a way is to, I would say, balance that naturally, I don't need to do anything. Here, people are addicted to doing things. Now, it doesn't mean, visualization can be fuzzy. I don't mean to say that. That, we just take a kind of like fuzzy, no need to visualize. No. When it does come to visualizing, we do want to visualize clearly. But it cannot come at the price of triggering, right? This kind of need to be in control, need to be doing better than everybody else, better than yourself. So it cannot be at the price of triggering that almost like obsessive compulsiveness. Because even if you succeed in like having very clear visualization, often what I see is that the emotional content is missing. So then it becomes very mechanistic. And not enough like heart. So try to find a way to balance heart and technique. Technique is definitely there for a reason. Yeah. So I don't, and we will go into that when we do, when we begin learning the Ngondro. Yeah. But first, I would say before anything else, try to experience the sentiment of taking refuge, the sentiment of the feeling of like, I really put my trust in Buddha Dharma Sangha. I really can see the qualities of Buddha Dharma Sangha. Yeah. I really can see that there is nothing else that really gives the kind of freedom that relying on Buddha Dharma Sangha can give. So develop first, I would say, the sentiment. Then once the sentiment is there, the technique, the details can become very powerful. In another context, I talked about how it's like, like visualization especially. So when we go into more visualization, the details of visualization of this or that, right? I said that for Tibetans, for example, the sentiment is sort of already there by osmosis, growing up, even if they don't know much. Often they don't know much about all the details, but the basic sentiment of like what Buddha Dharma Sangha means, what Guru Rinpoche means, what Tara means, that sentiment is already there. Then when the sentiment, that feeling is already there, then the details makes the feeling, even more intense. So the example I use is like, it's like describing to a child, imagine describing to a child or reading to a child a book about Santa's workshop in the North Pole. Yeah, so then all the details, the more detailed that description, the more it will, right, really get the child's imagination of like walking there, seeing Santa and all of that. And the elves, and the reindeer and Rudolph and, and all of that, But try to imagine someone who has, little understanding of what Santa Claus means. Then all the details would just be like, oh gosh, like, wait, how many reindeers? Wait, what are reindeers? So first, tap into like the feeling, the texture of refuge, for example. All like the prayer, all mother sentient beings, limitless. All mother sentient being, limitless. Is there anything particular to visualize? Not exactly. But this is when, it goes on to say, especially those enemies who hate me. Then at that point, whoever pops up in your mind, that will be it, Whoever you think hates you, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and all-knowingness, especially them. This is why I'm spending, the next 2 hours on Wednesday night. It's for these people. Which is probably not true, but that's okay. That we recognize is not true, we're making improvements. Other questions or comments?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
In which case should we sing the full dedication prayers?
Oh, in the case when you have time.
It's only a matter of time.
Yes.
Okay.
So you can like drag the practice, or not drag, but you can let the practice be really, really, really long. You can let the practice be really, really short, Yeah.
I say at least we should sing what we did today.
The
at
opening.
least.
Yes, that's the
minimum.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Actually, you can even shorten that, which is the Atisha Sangyecho Dansoki Chognamla and Manam Kadang, the 4 immeasurables. Yeah. That's even shorter. Yes.
Thank you.
You can let it be long, really long, and really short, Yeah. So, Carlos?
Yes, thank you. I have a question, first of all, thank you for your time. Well, I'm struggling a little bit about my meditation, my shamatha meditation.
Mm-hmm.
I've been trying for maybe 6 years to reach this stage of samadhi, or at least it will prove, I know this is a whole life practice, right? But
there are some traditions that emphasize certain like identifiable mental states. Yeah. So when I chuckled when you said that, please don't misunderstand. I'm not, making fun. I'm just like, okay, you know, it's possible. So in fact, there are traditions that say, especially in the Theravada, they will say you enter the first, then now you have entered the second, then you have entered the third. To some degree, in the Tibetan Buddhist world in the West, Alan Wallace has emphasized that kind of shamatha kind of steps. Yeah.
And
Sorry to interrupt. Please continue.
no. Thank you. But for example, I've heard the last week that you said something that I'm, I think quite like you with it. That when you were doing shamatha, for example, that when you try to focus on your breathing, and that you said that you were with allergies, and is what was quite hard. It used to happen to me too. So
Yes.
I would like to know what kind of meditation can I use, to try to move on a little bit, because I feel like
Right.
I'm trying to do always the same and always having quite the same results, of course. So I'm
Right.
trying to do, different things or new things about that.
Right. So I will say that in many more traditional Tibetan approach, the practice of shamatha isn't so directly practiced. The practice of shamatha is practiced in a more indirect way. So, which is, in fact, someone recently, I was talking to someone who is old enough to have been a student of the previous Dumjön Rinpoche, great Nyingma Lama, Dumjön Rinpoche. Many great lamas today are students of this great lama. Yeah, and so this friend said, how Dumjön Rinpoche used to kind of say, why, and principally because when he came to the West, and it's like, why are these people doing shamatha that way? He actually said that, and I read somewhere else. So it's not just this friend saying this. I read somewhere else that basically Dumjön Rinpoche said, that's not how we do it. He says, we will say, you go do practice Dara. Or you practice, Shakyamuni sadhana. Or you practice, Vajakilaya sadhana. And through that, shamatha is developed and vipassana insight is developed. Then after a lot of that, when you have like mastered or have the ability to work with sounds and forms and colors, then the mind is a little bit more flexible. Right now, our mind is very inflexible. What does it mean? It means it will talk back to you immediately. That's the principal inflexibility of the mind, is it will talk back to you immediately. You say, quiet. Why? Yeah. Don't wonder why. It will talk back to you immediately because it's very inflexible. Yeah. So the tradition, right, the method of using deity practice is a way to work with what the mind currently is addicted to, which is sight, sound, smell, taste, touch. Now, there are also a lot of people who do deity practice and 20 years later, they are also stuck because they don't know how to use the method. Likewise, especially if you are practicing within the Tibetan tradition, then for the most part, shamatha isn't directly practiced. Yeah? I'm not saying that you cannot do that. I'm just saying that you might want to think about, like what your mind needs in order to make it more flexible. Then again, I feel like in the West, our mind is very opinionated, very fixed, very inflexible. So it's actually hard to reach a state of shamatha. And even when it seems to reach a state of shamatha, it's a dead shamatha. It's a rigid shamatha. So if you do a deity practice and you do it right, at the end in the dissolution, the mind can settle evenly, very easily. And then, from there, not only will calm abiding arise more easily, but it's a calm abiding that arises in a flexible, in a way that makes the mind more flexible, more workable. I mean, the whole point of shamatha is not just that the mind is not going to move, right? Getting the mind not to move, is killing it, You don't want that. Getting it not to move is preliminary to having it be more flexible, more workable. Right now, it's not workable. So the more you force it, the more it pushes back. The more you force, the more it pushes back. Now, specific suggestion. Nose problem, right? Body. So and ultimately, whether it's nose or body, it's actually breath that is the object. So if breath is the object, then here is very common. But another place for breath is the entire body. When you breathe in like a balloon, body expands, body closes, body expands, body closes. And I feel, to me, it's a bridge to later Vajrayana practice if we do it that way.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, and Latino culture may be body not so complicated. Well, a different kind of complication. Protestant bodies, it's very much a split between mind and body is very strong, with an emphasis on mind, intellect, spirit. So Protestant, so to say, or Protestant influence bodies. It's people are very cut off from the experience of embodiment. And so learning to pay attention to body, I think is really necessary. And not let, meditation, Buddhism, Dharma become so much about, so heady, ideas, thoughts, mind, So I think in that way, Vajrayana has a particular role to play in cultures where the mind and the body is so separate, you know. I don't know quite well enough yet, you know, like Latin American culture in terms of body-mind divide. I have to spend more time to understand that.
You're welcome here if you want to explore then.
Where in Mexico are you?
Yeah, I'm in León, Guanajuato.
Oh, Leon. Okay.
I'm like 4-hour distance of Guadalajara.
Okay. Leon. Omar, you're in Leon, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, Omar and Elena.
Elena too? Okay.
Well, thank you.
Sure. Leon has what? Mezcal?
Sorry?
Leon.
Guanajuato.
What are the mind-altering drinks you have in Leon? I can talk about it because I have no interest in mind-altering things. No interest in taking because I'm very sensitive to things like this. But I'm interested in, like, you know, food and drink cultures. To me, it's an insight into people.
Well, it's well, actually about food, we don't have like a lot of food here. You know, there's like, it's called guacamayas, and it's just like a piece of bread with a I don't know, it's
Okay.
chicharrón it's called, but I don't know what's that. You know, we don't have like a lot of things here. Very
Each
typical.
time I go to places, one of the first things, you know, people say, "What do you want to see?" I say, "Take me to the market." Everywhere I go, first thing is I say, "Take me to the market," because I say I don't want to go to, you know, the supermarket. You know, I have a lot in the U.S. I don't need to see that. Maybe later I can go, but take me to whatever traditional market you have, because there I get a sense of, you know, what people are, you know.
Tianguis. Tianguis is called in Mexico. Tianguis. Market is equal to tianguis.
Yeah, so other questions, comments?
Hello.
Yes.
Yeah, when Lara was mentioned about the outer, inner, and secret offerings, I remember also about the objects of refuge that are outer, inner,
Yes.
and
Yes.
secret.
It's
And so
Vajrayana. Always outer, inner, secret. Outer, inner, secret. Outer, inner, secret. It's a triad that everything you can talk about outer, inner, secret.
Okay.
Outer, inner, secret empanadas.
Yeah. By the way, I'm Antonio from Guatemala. For those.
Outer, inner, secret kway teow tung for Malaysians. You know, everything is outer, inner, secret, because they are like the three dimensions of everything, really, in a way. Outer is, you know, what you can see, you can hear, you can touch. Outer. Inner is the inner experience, you know, how somebody experienced something, that's the inner. Secret is the most essential level of what the heck is going on. Yeah, so everything can be seen through the lenses of outer, inner, secret.
Yeah.
It's not CIA or MI, you know, MI5 or 6 secret. Secret means the most essential.
Yeah, so I was wondering about when we are taking refuge. Usually we're more familiarized with the outer and even the inner objects of refuge. Guru Jiram, sorry.
Right.
But the secret refuge, well, it is, I don't know. I'm not,
It's the
yeah,
channels, winds, and drops. Zalong and Tigle. Yeah.
yeah. And how we relate with it.
When either you and I are at the 8th level bodhisattva, then we can worry about that.
Okay. Okay.
This is Jigten Sumgun's way, you know. Kyoba Jigten Sumgun says, you know, you truly have the ability to wield the full technology of the secret level when you're on the 8th level. Of course, to be clear, people do practice the winds, drops, and channels. But, you know, really, you and me, or me, I cannot speak for you. I've given up this lifetime to do that much with that. Too old. They say the channels are all like cranky already, you know. The channels are not so flexible anymore. It's too set in its ways. Having said that, so what does it mean when we say that the secret refuge, that means the most personal, in a way you can say, or the most intimate, the most essential level of what we're working with, we are working with that energetic body. And in that sense, it is true. If you have misconceptions of what this energetic level is, then your inner level will be messed up, your outer level will be messed up. So at the very least, before we get to 8th Bhumi Bodhisattva level, to fully wield the full power of what those practices can bring, at this end of things, recognize that there is the physical body, there is the emotional body, and then there is the energetic body. And these three bodies are interplaying. There's an interplay between these three all the time. Then there's the fourth, because whenever you have outer, inner, secret, in India, whenever you have three, it's always +1. What is the +1? That's called the thusness or suchness level. And what are those? Those are the three kayas. Dharmakaya, Sambogakaya, and Nirmanakaya. That's said to be in the end, it's all the three kayas. And then what does that mean? Right? Dharmakaya is the emptiness aspect of all our experiences. All our experiences lack substantiality. They interdependently arise, right? What enables this interdependent arising? That's what we called Sambogakaya. But what is Sambogakaya in this context? It's the mind's luminous quality. Poetically, it says the luminous quality, the brightness of the mind. It's a poetic expression. We're not talking about light. Here we're talking about the ability to know. So not only is mind empty of substantiality, that in itself doesn't render that as mind. It's only mind if not only is it empty, which is the Dharmakaya aspect, but it also has the ability to know. That's the Sambogakaya aspect. Then the Nirmanakaya aspect is not only is it empty of substantiality, meaning fixity, it has the ability to know, and it is unobstructed. Like nothing can really impede it. So this unobstructedness, in Dzogchen especially expression, they call it compassion. Poetically, it's called compassion. In Mahamudra, usually it's expressed as like all-pervading, kakyap. And sometimes when you combine the two, then they say tukje kakyap, meaning this compassion is all-pervading. But it's not compassion the way we normally think of compassion. Our compassion is a dualistic compassion. This compassion is talking about a better rendered into English, I think, as resonance. How you resonate, right? So there is a resonance between self and other, that you're resonating together. And that's that quality of that mind. So these three qualities, when confused, what we call samsara is also these three qualities at work. When free from confusion, it's also these three qualities at work. Yeah, if emptiness wasn't the case, if things weren't free from being fixed, then nothing can arise. Then all the infinite, variety that we see, not possible. All the complications of samsara, not possible. So that's the ultimate refuge. Either using the vocabulary of the three kayas, Dharmakaya, Sambogakaya, Nirmanakaya, or using empty, clear, or luminous, and pervasive.
Thank you.
Okay. I think, let's see, there was a question that was raised in Facebook group. I think it was Andrew that asked the question about, it's just a side point. I didn't have time to, sometimes it takes me too long to try to type things up. A question about Ganachakra or talk offering. And talk offering, before I say this or that, the Tibetans have a saying. They say every mountain, lots of mountains in Tibet, right? Every mountain has its own valley. Every valley has its own town or village. Every village has its own Gompa temple, and every Gompa has its own Lama. And every Lama has his own Dharma. Every Lama has his own Dharma, has his own religion, has his own version of, however that he does, or whatever he learned from. So I often say, for every rule that you're going to hear about, you can at least find 3 exceptions. Yeah, so that's a general kind of guideline you should know. Okay, now with that as like the caveat, the background, generally speaking, in Drigung Kagyu practice of Gana Chakra, of offering talk, for sure, if it is a Jigten Sumgun talk offering, so there's a guru Lama Chopa, a guru puja practice that has a talk offering. Specifically in that text, it says, do not use alcohol or meat. Do not use alcohol or meat. Now, of course, to have that line there in the instructions means normally people do use alcohol and meat for Gana Chakra, for talk. And especially in the West, I think they go all out in their meat and alcohol for those Vajrayana groups that do use meat and alcohol. But as far as I know, in all the Drigung Kagyu centers in the West, we generally don't. But of course, we don't only do the Guru Puja of Jigten Sumgun talk, but I believe that even when we do the other talk, like for example, like in Nairatmya or any other deities, highest yoga tantra where there's talk, we also generally don't use meat and alcohol, which is unusual. Then, like for example, in I have seen before one time when one of our Rinpoches, Gajen Rinpoche, when he first came out of Tibet, he gave a Vajavarahi, Vajrayogini empowerment at the Tibetan Meditation Center. So in the Varahi practice, there is the offering of Gana Chakra or talk that is offered to the hand, the deities that are generated onto the palm. So then you have a plate. And so then he did use meat, but they are such like, like a little scrap in 5 like tiny little pieces that he used to offer. And since then, I've learned that in many other performance of that part of that offering, in fact, they use like tsampa and put red dye into 5 pieces. So generally, at least in contemporary Drigung Kagyu, I don't know how far back it goes. In Gana Chakra, we avoid using meat and alcohol. And,
why is that?
And, because a lot of it has to do with the founder, Kyopa Jigten Sumgun. He talked about how he said, when we understand that the nature of alcohol, he said what? Alcohol, blood, and meat. Alcohol, blood, and milk is the same, he says. Then, for beings who are not yet, again, that 8th Bhumi Bodhisattva, he says, just stick with things that will not cause any harm. So I guess without getting in too technical, I think the take-home lesson he's saying is, why if the lesson that we're trying to learn here is about emptiness and transformation, then there's no need to use meat and alcohol, is what he's saying. Because they potentially, well, meat, definitely harm has occurred. I mean, even if you're not the one butchering, harm has occurred. So Jigdan Sumgun is quite careful about that. Yeah. And to the point that even I have not seen the text, but I trust, like I remember some Lama saying that he was so careful about that he even said, like, even with Tortimus, right? He said, don't paint them red. Because he said, because that will, and I see what he means, because that will, even in a subtle way, kind of trigger you to justify anger and how easy we can justify our anger and our thought of wanting to harm someone, So he said, don't even paint them red. Yeah? Now, of course, today, in the lineage, there are a lot of Torments that are painted red. I'm not saying that, they are doing things against Jigdan Sumgun. For me, it's more like, what's the take-home lesson, Then, if you look at, so this is not a peculiar Drigong thing. Before you think that it's a peculiar Drigong thing, just read Words of My Perfect Teacher. There, Bajra Rinpoche was very clear on the chapter on bodhicitta, where he laments about how that this talk offering has become a cultural event where it's an excuse to basically have a feast. And there he says, gosh, like these animals are terrified when they hear that the lamas are coming to town. Because, in the name of offering talk, people are going to have a feast. I think I remember, friends, and maybe Suzanne, you have heard this, or more specifically. There's also evidence that Bajra Rinpoche himself wasn't a strict vegetarian. Yeah? Now we're not saying that he's a hypocrite, or at least I'm not saying, but I think what he's pointing to is like, if for whatever reason you're going to eat meat, please don't turn it into a talk offering and say, I'm doing talk offering. You be clear about why you're eating meat, and not turn, something that was given as a way to achieve freedom into an excuse to kind of perpetuate suffering. So I think that's the main point there. That we cannot, So he said, I remember in Words of My Perfect Teacher, he said, when the Tantra, he says, when the Tantras talk about meat, they are not talking about like the meat that you go to the store and buy. They're not talking about a yak that you slaughtered. They're talking about like human flesh, horse, right? And then he said they're talking about these animals that have died naturally. So definitely you cannot get them from a store. And he says, and they are also, then he says, so you say that if you guys think that in Ganachaka you should use meat because the text say meat, right? Flesh. He says, guess what? The text also say excrement, menstrual blood, semen. He said, I don't see you all like slurping that down and going, I'm doing Ganachakra. Brains. It's like, when you start doing that, then okay. Yeah, so. So in Bajra Rinpoche, he says, he talks about that.
As a personal practice question.
Mhm.
Instead of meat and alcohol, would tea in like some sort of grain or fruit be acceptable? Because I
Yes,
do
yeah. So
please talk.
usually what we do for the alcohol, right? We use
Yeah.
juice or milk or
Okay.
now almond milk,
All
or
right.
some
Thank you.
liquid basically. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, some liquid. Uh, but again, I think different. Then some traditions will insist. I don't think the point is to go pick a fight with. If you happen in the talk ritual where they're using meat and alcohol and it's not you, going, ooh, there's a talk going on, then just pure vision, if it is put on your plate, you should kind of not get stuck in judging, because the other part of talk is you don't judge. Yeah. On the level of if you're preparing, then you need to make a conscious choice what you're going to offer a talk. If you ask me, yeah. Then when you arrive at a place where there's a talk going on, part of Vajrayana practice is training in pure perception, right? So then at that point, there's no point, making, not only no point, but it's detrimental to your practice if you're going to sit there and judge, oh, this Lama, how can he use alcohol? Oh, why this meat here, la, la, la. Then it's better you get up and leave. Because everything has its context, its kind of function. Yeah. So I advocate, like, when preparing, you can make the choices that aligns with your understanding of what harms, what helps. But when you are in a situation where it's not your choice to make, then you have to hold to the more fundamental purpose of talk, which is to cut through all concepts, And so then while you're eating or consuming, you have to maintain an even more kind of careful state of mind. And when talk has been distributed, you have to be even more vigilant. And so it can turn out as a positive. So I'm sure that many of you are going, gosh, this is like, is this Greek? But it's the nature of, all of us are coming from, different entry points. So if it's like, I don't know what's going on, then it's your offering to those who know what's going on. So hopefully, as a group, as a community, there are some meetings where I will address, more details, some of the details that are somewhat irrelevant to you. Then don't feel too disappointed, See it as an offering for those who can make sense of it. Then at other times, there will be things that you should ask, that pertains to your practice. Then other people will similarly, offer that time, that attention. So I'm polishing and got help that Ngondro text that I talked about. So so very soon I'll introduce that. Don't be afraid. No one is being bound to tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of this and that. I want to introduce Ngondro as not something to complete, but as strengthening the foundation of our practice, as a common reference point, especially for us as a group, so that at the beginning, you know, I will talk more, but the more we kind of get these basic things kind of in place, then, you know, a few months down the road, what will happen is, and this has happened, like for example, there's a subset of you guys who have been taking this Gongchik class 3 times a week. When it first started, it was 5 times a week, and that was a strategy to scare away people. So 5 times a week, and then after a couple of months, the subset survived 5 times a week, and I wasn't sure if I was going to survive, so then I turned it to 3 times a week, and then now it's down to 2 times a week. Yeah, but for that, you know, 3 times a week, 5 times a week, 2 times a week, the first hour or less than the first hour is practice. Then not much of me talking anymore, explaining, because after a while, you know, I know that we are all more or less on the same page. Then it's, you know, 40 minutes at least of the practice session. Then the second part, then we look at a specific text that we're all working with. Tibetan Buddhism is very kind of textually grounded. It could either be a curse or it could be a strength. Again, it's up to you. Yeah. I will try to relate and present the text so that, you know, it doesn't become a curse, you know, like, oh my God, you know, 1.1, 1.2. You know, it's like, you know, when afflictive emotions come, they don't come like that, you know, 1.1, 1.2, 1.3. So there is a text that I'm thinking in terms of, it's called the Chodra Ningtam. So Chodra is this Chodra, Drigong Dhammatik Kirti, the first Chungzang Rinpoche. He wrote a short text where it's 35 verses. So it's like 35 pieces of heart advice, Ningtam, his heart advice. From his heart, he's giving this advice. But it's sort of a lamrim type, but not as detailed as the usual lamrim. But it does provide kind of like stages of that. First, you need to understand this, then this, then this. So then it then builds up to a comprehensive kind of, and I think it's good for us as a group to have that as a kind of basic reference point. Certainly, there are much more detailed texts of that sort. The most famous one in the Kagyu tradition would be the Ornament of Liberation, Dakpo Rinpoche, Gampopa's Targen. But that's just really voluminous, you know, very detailed. I don't know if, you know, it's the right thing for our group to start with, you know. So I'm going to set that aside first and start with something that is just 35 verses. So that's Chodra's Ningtam, heart advice of Chodra. And then the auspiciousness of, like, you know, this Sangha is named after him. So we'll use, then the Ngondro that we are going to use is also his composition. So we're doing a number of, we're going to be engaging a number of Chodra's compositions. Chodra is his Tibetan name, and Dhammakirti is the Sanskrit of his Tibetan name. And because there is a famous Indian logician called Dhammakirti, and so therefore to not confuse the two, when we refer to Chodra, we say Drigong Dhammakirti. So again, a reminder, like there is the application form, don't rack your mind, writing. It's not like college entrance essays, but it's just, to formalize things a little. So don't forget that. Then now, before we close for tonight, let's do the 21 Tara, the praises to Tara. At Urban Dharma Temple, the main kind of object representation of the Buddhas is Buddha Shakyamuni standing. Unusual for Tibetan, a standing Buddha statue. That is because a friend of mine, I think in this group maybe only Suzanne has met her, Aoife, this Taiwanese American nun. She was the one who arranged for this statue to be gifted by one of her friends in Taiwan. So when she asked what kind of statue I was looking for, we were visiting this friend who has a great collection of Buddhas. He has 3 warehouses of antiques. Then I said, "Oh, a seated Buddha," and this friend, this nun, she said, "No, seated." She's like, "No." She goes, "Buddhists are always sitting, sitting, sitting. We need standing Buddhas. We need Buddhas that are active." I was like, "Okay." So that's how we got a standing Buddha. But more, my point is actually about Tara. Then in front of the standing Buddha, we have Tara, the Urban Dharma Shrine. So this is also pertaining to the question about shrine. And also Andrew raised this question in the group. And so it's been a lot of fun. I want to encourage those of you who have not done so yet to take a picture of your shrine and post to that thread. I think it allows us to kind of get to know each other, and that's a fun way and also very meaningful, I think. And there's no shrine that is not up to standard, there's just no such thing. So whatever, practice shrine, focus that you currently have, please share with us. But coming back to this at Urban Dharma, so we have a very unusual compared to other Tibetan Buddhist shrines, a very simple. We have one Buddha Shakyamuni in the center, and then in front is a Tara. And I feel that this is a good balance, Generally, Buddhism is a very kind of macho, masculine tradition, Not as macho, masculine as the Abrahamic traditions, but still overall, it's very macho. And it's so good to have Tara as the other side of this story, the other side of what we are also working on. And so I have a soft spot emotionally to the deity, to the Buddha Tara. One thing to point out is that all the great masters of Nalanda, many of them, their main idam is Tara. Interestingly, their main idam is Tara. Many of the great logicians and philosophers, and I think it's because they know what they need to kind of balance the other side. to balance the other side. So everything that we develop, we want to develop in tandem. So now we will close with the 21 taras. So let's begin actually on page 1. So I'm going to chant, so you can chant on your side. This one, the page 1, it's not set to the, it's not translated so that we can chant, sing as the 21 taras. But I'm going to begin with this sevenfold. These tradition says this particular sevenfold puja was composed by a famous master called Gelongma Pelmo, Bhikshuni Shri. So she was a great siddha, one of the female siddhas, called Gelongma Pelmo. Gelongma Pelmo most famously was the one who originated the practice of Nyungne, the fasting practice with prostrations. But tradition also says that these 7 verses was composed by her. Yeah. Utterly and sincerely I pay homage to exalted noble Tara and all the conquerors and their heirs dwelling in the 10 directions and 3 times. I offer flowers, incense, lamps, fragrant scents, food, music, and the like, physical and mentally conjured. Noble lady and your complete retinue, please accept them. From beginningless time until now, the 10 non-virtues and the 5 heinous sins, arisen from the mind under the power of afflictive emotions, all these misdeeds, I lay them bare. So this is confession. I lay them bare. I expose them. I no longer hide them. Yeah? That's the Buddhist understanding of what confession means. No longer hide them. We expose them. We expose them. We no longer hide them. We do not expose other people's wrongdoings. Okay, so not exposing that. We expose our own, for whom? Not necessarily for others either. For ourselves to see clearly. Because if we don't see clearly, right, how we got into this mess, then there's no chance of clearing this mess. Yeah. So this is the meaning of confession. I rejoice in the merit of all the virtues accumulated in the 3 times by hearers, prajekas, bodhisattvas, and ordinary beings, and so forth. Please turn the wheel of Dharma of the greater, lesser, and common vehicles in accordance with the dispositions and mental capacities of sentient beings. Until samsara has been completely emptied, out of compassion do not pass into nirvana. Please have regard for sentient beings sinking in this ocean of suffering. Whatever virtue I may have gathered, may it become a cause for the awakening of all. May I quickly become an excellent guide for all wandering beings. So when we do the 21 taras, so you can think in this way, so this principle of tara is the principle of active compassion in the world. So compassion that is actualized. So the 21 forms of tara and the qualities that are described in these 21 verses is the whole range of dangers, conditions, harms that may exist. And for all these situations, conditions, it is said that Tara will swiftly appear there to dispel them. So when we do this 21 Taras, we can do it as an offering to alleviating all the difficulties and sufferings that manifest anywhere in the world for anyone. So we offer this praise, this prayer in this understanding, in this spirit. That just like a loving mother will fiercely intervene to pull her child, her children out of danger. Likewise, may this active principle of compassion, whatever degree of that exists in me, may it be actualized, may it grow. Then beyond myself, wherever it exists in anyone, anywhere, these are all activities of Tara. Tara, the name actually means the liberator, she who liberates. So anyone, anywhere that works, that acts in a way that delivers others from danger, from suffering, that is Tara, no doubt. Because Tara is not just a person. Tara is this compassion that is alive and present wherever danger exists, wherever pain exists. Om, homage to Tara, the noble and sublime. Homage to Tara, swift and courageous. You drive away all our fears with Tara. Savior is fulfilling all aims with the Ture. With syllable Swaha we offer you homage. Homage to Tara, swift and courageous. Gazes as quick as flashes of lightning. From Lord of Triloka, his face like a lotus. You rose on a billionfold blossoming stamens. Offer homage to you with a face that resembles a meeting of 100 full moons in autumn, and who with the brightness of stars by the thousands shine in a vast perfect light of resplendence. Homage to you, the golden-hued lady, whose hand is adorned by a blue lotus flower. Your scope of activity is giving exertion, fortitude, peace, tolerance, meditation. Homage to you, the victorious, boundless, from the Tathagata's crown emanated. Those who obtain every transcendent virtue, offspring of victors, rely on your guidance. Homage to you, filling realms of desire, its aspect and space with the Hung and Tutara. Sevenfold worlds under feet you can trample. You bring all and everything under your power. Homage to you who is worshipped by Indra, Agni, Marut, Viveshwara and Brahma, all the Vetalas, Buddhas, Gandharvas, as well as the Yakshas give praise in your presence. Homage to you who by tread and the path sounds crush every magical wheel, evil forces. Right leg extended and left bent you trample. Within whirling flames you are blazing intensely. Homage to you, the swift terrifying, who conquers the most tenacious of Maras. Knitting the brow on your lotus-like features, you slay every foe without an exception. Homage to you with your fingers in mudra, adorning your heart to show the three jewels. Your masses of light are beautiful, swirling, connecting with every direction in circles. Homage to you from your crown manifesting, joyous, majestic, brilliant garlands, with the great clangor of laughter to Tara. Demons and worlds are in your domination. Homage to you with the magnetized powers, who gather protectors of earth in assembly. With syllable Hung and your brow which is frowning, you liberate every predestitute being. Homage to you with the crescent and moon crown, while your adornments so brilliantly sparkle. An Amitabha is placed in your top knot, ceaselessly vast rays of light radiating. Homage to you seated in flaming garlands, engulfed in the fire like the end of the Kalpa. Right leg extended and left bent defeating enemy hordes with your joy-bringing swirling. Homage to you with your palms you are striking the earth while using your feet to be stamping. regally frowning with the Hong letter. You shatter the sevenfold layers of locusts. Homage to you, blissful, virtuous, and peaceful. Enjoy the domain of the tranquil nirvana, fully possessing the Om and the Swaha. You overcome even the greatest of evils. Homage to you who, encircled by joyous, utterly smashes the forms of opponents, clearing away with the Hong of awareness, arranges the mantra by tenfold of letters. Homage to you with feet stamping Ture, fully presenting the form of the Hong seed. You cause the three worlds to all be a tremble, including Mount Meru, Mandara, and Vindhya. Homage to you in whose hands is a deer marked, shaped like the Deva's ocean of nectar, sound of the pet and the twice-arted Tara, without an exception dispels every poison. Homage to you who is asked for your guidance by rulers of Devas, by gods and Kinnaras. Your armor of joy, a radiant brightness, removes every nightmare and calms every quarrel. Homage to you whose two eyes are shining with brilliant lights like the sun and the full moon. By Tutara and with the twice chanted Hara, you clear away even infectious diseases. Homage to you who can calm down completely through the array of the threefold thatness. Crowds of Vetalas, Bhuttas, and Yakshas, suppressed with the Ture sublime Mother Tara. Together with this the root mantra in praise form. These were the 21 verses of homage. Now, the dedication prayer. So here, page 29. So this is a short way to, starting on page 29. Further down, actually, the next one. Yeah. By the virtues collected in the three times by me and the entirety of samsara and nirvana, may I and all sentient beings quickly attain the unsurpassed, perfect, complete, precious Bodhi. By the blessings of the truth of the Kagyu Gurus, the excellent three, Idams, Tarkinis, and Dharmapalas, may the spiritual and temporal places of the tradition of the second Nagarjuna flourish. Whatever discordant faults that cause harm may arise, may they be pacified, and may there be abundant prosperity and happiness. May the teachings of the great Drigungpa Ratnashri, the all-knowing Dharma Lord Master of interdependence, continue to increase through study, practice, contemplation, and meditation until the end of samsara. By the power of the virtues collected in accordance with the teachings of the pure realizations of the unmistaken teacher, may the teachings of Ratnashri of Drigung, the protector of the 10th Bhumi, flourish perpetually. Yeah, so we are done.
Dr. Lai,
Yes.
if I could have your assistance and patience, I could show you live my pictures of my two altars, but I don't know how to put the pictures on Facebook. So if you would like to take pictures with your computer, I can go to my altars and you guys can have, you know what I'm.
Sure. No, I can figure it out. Maybe not tonight because everybody probably has
Okay.
to do. But you know, we can do Zoom where it's just you and me, and you can carry your computer to your shrine, and then I'll do a screenshot. Good idea.
Okay. I don't know when you want to do a Zoom, but
We can figure it out. Yes.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
No problem.
And yeah, so the protected area has the text and also the discussion, the forum, the discussion board. So if you can figure out how to use it, please start using it. If you cannot, then next week we'll get a tutorial on how to use it.
Dr. Lai, I have a
Yes.
super quick question
Yes,
about the
sure.
praises of Tara.
Uh-huh.
So is there a point in that particular practice where you would recite like her mantra? The Om Tare Tutare Ture Soha?
Not necessarily. You can insert like in between each praise. You can do it at the end, you know? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, you know, there are then sadhanas of Tara, you know, where you visualize yourself arising as Tara, then you do the mantra, and then you do the 21 praises. Yeah?
Okay.
So in fact, now we talk about, you know, there being 21 Taras. But if you look at the text itself, it's really 21 verses praising Tara. On the basis of this text, the tradition of 21 forms of Tara developed. Then it is said that even these 21 verses of praise of Tara is actually the 21 verses of praise of the 10 syllables. And what are they talking about? The 10 syllables? The basic Tara mantra, which is 10 syllables. Om Tare Tut Tare Ture Swaha. The 10 syllables. It's the mantra. Then, okay, quickly, Tara, the deity, and the 10-syllable mantras are two forms of the same thing. So mantras, they are not like names of deities. They're not even like ways you call the deity. They are the deity or the principle, the awakened principle in the form of sound. Yeah? In the form of sound.
So this particular sadhana, the underlying assumption is that it's already praising the mantra. You don't have to do the mantra separately.
Yeah.
Okay, I got you.
Yeah, and here is no, you know, again, no specific visualization, right? Again, I'm introducing it as, you know, like invocations or prayers that we can do. And it's to develop the feeling, the sentiment, before we get into the techniques, the nuts and bolts that will come. I want to focus first more on getting the tone right, so to say, like catching the essence of what's going on. Then when we learn the details, you know, then it becomes richer and richer. Ideally. I cannot promise anything. Okay, y'all. Good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Unmute yourself and
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Best of this.
Good night, everyone.
Gracias, gracias.
everyone.
Buenas noches.
Good morning. In Asia.
Thank you. Good night.
Buenas noches.
buenas noches.
Buenas noches.